touch the sky. Hooray, all around. Don't know if I'm going up or down.
Thematically, this video lecture could have been part of the previous video on psychedelic London, but I thought the greatest guitar player of all time deserves to have his own video lecture. Today, we're talking about Jimi Hendrix. Jimi Hendrix was born in Seattle, Washington on November 27th, 1942. He moves all around the country. He lives in Tennessee for a while, he lives in New York for a while, and he even serves in the US Army for a time. But his first big breakthrough in music is when he's hired as Little Richard's guitar player in the 1960s. I already told you that the Beatles opened up for Little Richard on one of his tours in the 1960s. Well, that's his connection to the Beatles. His connection to Jimi Hendrix is that Jimi actually played in his band for a while. It didn't last too long though, because Little Richard actually kicked Jimi Hendrix out because he would steal the show. Jimi Hendrix is known as this amazing live performer. Even if you don't listen to a single note he plays, if you just watch him on stage, he's so entertaining. Just like many of the folk and folk rock bands, including Bob Dylan and Peter, Paul and Mary, Jimi Hendrix winds up in Greenwich Village in New York City performing, but he's not finding the breakthrough success he wants. It's during this time that Jimi Hendrix gets an offer from a manager saying, if you come to London, England, I will manage you. I think you'll be more successful in London than you are here. During the 1960s, we don't see anywhere near the racial divide in England as we see in America, so it's far more likely that an African-American solo performer is going to find breakthrough success in a white genre. So many of the successful African-American artists we've talked about up to this point were successful because they were playing a musical genre or style that was considered itself to be an African-American style. Well, for the last 10 years, so much of rock music has been dominated by white performers. So by some people's accounts, it seems like it could be a long shot that Jimi Hendrix would find significant success. As soon as Jimi gets to London, he starts a band called the Jimi Hendrix Experience. It's a three-piece band, so just like Cream of Eric Clapton had guitar, bass, and drums, the Jimi Hendrix Experience also has guitar, bass, and drums, with Jimi playing guitar and singing lead vocals. Jimi Hendrix has a ton of songs that were both mainstream pop hits and very popular among the subculture, but a few of the most noteworthy ones are Purple Haze, Foxy Lady, Hey Joe, and Fire. Additionally, he covers a Bob Dylan song called All Along the Watchtower. Remember, in the Greenwich Village in the 1960s, everyone was playing Bob Dylan's music. Well, Jimi Hendrix may not be a folk artist, but he's still following that trend. This particular song is noteworthy because Bob Dylan recorded a lot of music, and almost all of his songs have been covered by somebody, but he never changes the way he performs it. There's the Bob Dylan version, and then there's the other versions. However, Bob Dylan was so impressed by Jimi Hendrix's rendition of All Along the Watchtower that from that point on, when Bob Dylan performs that song live, he's inspired by Jimi's performance. It's the only song like that for Bob Dylan. In addition to these mainstream songs, he also has some of the more psychedelic subculture songs, such as If 6 Was 9. Jimi Hendrix's guitar playing style is iconic for so many reasons, but I want to point out a few of the most important ones. Let's start with his equipment. He usually plays either a Fender Stratocaster or a Gibson Flying V. But when he plays the Fender Stratocaster, he's a left-handed guitarist playing a right-handed guitar. That's why his guitar looks like it's upside down. It literally is. So instead of playing his guitar like this, what we would normally expect to see, he flips the order that the guitar is strung and plays it like this, what looks backwards to us, backward and upside down because it's a right-handed guitar. Paul McCartney was also left-handed, but Paul McCartney plays a left-handed bass, so it doesn't really look as strange to see. Whereas because Jimi Hendrix is playing a right-handed guitar, it almost looks like you're looking at a mirror image or something like that. Just something looks strange about it. Every electric guitar player has to use an amplifier to make the guitar loud enough to be heard, but most people only use an amplifier that's as big as they need for the gig. Jimi Hendrix, however, would play what's called a Marshall full stack. Marshall is a world-famous, very popular British amplifier brand. And when we say he'd play a full stack, that means he has the amplifier head, just the mechanics of it, on top of a set of 4 12-inch speakers on top of another set of 4 12-inch speakers. So Jimi Hendrix is playing through 8 12-inch speakers, and a lot of the time he doubles that. So 16 12-inch speakers with 100 watts, 102 watts, that is a lot of sound. I just can't express to you how loud, bursting your eardrums this is on stage. He could be playing a stadium, not mic the guitar amp at all, and every person in that stadium will hear every note he plays. It's so incredibly loud all the time, and that's how he gets this screaming guitar sound. He's also known for a guitar effect pedal called a wah-wah. It's this pedal that has an axis in the middle, and you move your heel to your toe back and forth, and it creates this like wow, 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 wow sound effect as you're playing. If you're listening for it, you'll definitely hear it on some of these songs. We've talked about some of his equipment. Let's talk about his playing style. Most people separate guitar playing into two styles. There's lead playing and rhythm playing. People who are playing rhythm are strumming chords and playing more of a background role. People who are playing lead, they're the ones doing the riffs and the guitar solos. For most bands, it's two separate people. That's basically how it was with the Beatles. George Harrison would play lead while John Lennon would play rhythm. Part of what makes Jimi Hendrix so important as a guitar player, not only is he a virtuoso, he's absolutely incredible, but he was able to combine lead and rhythm together in a way that sounds like two people are playing. If you listen to a Jimi Hendrix record, you might think they were using an Octopus 8-track player or something to layer sound on top of each other like Les Paul and Mary Ford used to do, but you're hearing Jimi Hendrix in one take by himself. He's able to play and make it sound like two people are playing. As you'll see in this week's videos, Jimi Hendrix likes to play with his guitar behind his back. He doesn't even need to see what he's playing. In fact, he doesn't even need to use his fingers because a lot of the time he plays with his mouth. He'll use his tongue and his teeth to play the guitar. And I don't mean just make random noises, but Jimi Hendrix can play the guitar better with his teeth than most people can with their hands. Unfortunately, very few of Jimi Hendrix's guitars still exist. One of the most common ways he went into show is he would light his guitars on fire almost in this ritualistic way. And when you hear Jimi Hendrix talk about music and see him play, he is so connected to the music that this is almost like this ritualistic ending of the piece of music. So most of his guitars were lit on fire and destroyed. Fortunately, a few of them did survive. And even if it's a guitar that Jimi Hendrix owned and played, but maybe he didn't play it at any special show or something, it was just one of the many guitars he owned, they still regularly sell for as high as $1 million. His most iconic guitar, and thankfully he didn't light this one on fire, is his white Fender Stratocaster that he played during his Woodstock performance. My wife and I were married at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. We actually had Jimi Hendrix's Woodstock guitar right next to where we got married. It was super cool. Jimi Hendrix may be this virtuosic guitar player and an amazing singer, and he may put on an incredible stage show performance, but he was actually very shy. So shy that when he was in the recording studio, he would actually hide behind those Marshall full stacks. It's an amplifier that stands 6'5". He would stand behind those and sing because he would get nervous if people were watching him. Jimi Hendrix is known first and foremost for his amazing contributions to music, but he's also known for his very deep and very spiritual philosophy, spreading this message of love and respect and understanding for everyone that's really on display in his interviews with Dick Cavett from the 1960s that you can check out. One of my favorite stories about Jimi Hendrix is on June 4th, 1967, a week after Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band is released. Even during the first week of its release, people can already tell that Sgt. Pepper is going to be a big deal and it's really going to change music because it's so innovative and it's such a huge hit record. Well, Jimi Hendrix is performing, again this is 1 week after the album comes out, and he finds out that Paul McCartney and George Harrison are in the audience to see him perform. Well, Jimi Hendrix is actually friends with all of the Beatles. When he first got to London, the Beatles really did a lot to help him get established in the music scene. They recognized immediately what an incredible player he was, and they really wanted to support his musical career. Well, he sees his two friends come to a show, and he decides as a nice little tribute to them, he's going to have the Jimi Hendrix Experience perform Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. This is impressive for a few reasons. At this point, if you wanted to learn a song, you had to learn it just from listening to it. You can't go buy a tab book at your local guitar center. You can't go to Ultimate Guitar or Songster and download the music that way. So he and his band, about a half hour before the show started, listened to Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, learned the song in a few minutes, and they opened the concert with it. A lot of people thought this was a risky move because if they played the song poorly, it would be really embarrassing to them and would probably insult Paul and George. But of course, Paul and George thought it was incredible. That may be my favorite story about Jimi Hendrix, but the most important event of Jimi Hendrix's career is undeniably his performance at Woodstock. Now there's more to the Jimi Hendrix story, but I'm going to leave it there for now, and we'll pick that story up a few video lectures from now when we talk about the Summer of Love.